Hello everyone, welcome back to the Hindu Explainer series. I am Kushagra Goyal and very warm greetings from Law Pro Tutorial. In today's newspaper, we have news from economic section. So this one news will be important from economic figures. Over the past 6-7 months, we have been discussing GDP figures, but we'll be talking about this in a little bit more depth. Alright, and we'll be talking also about some other bodies. But before we do that, we need to discuss the doubts, and there is some important doubts that need to be answered. So first one, over the time period we have been discussing about cyclones, we have been talking about the monsoon rains to arrive, and therefore the question becomes the IMD, the Indian Meteorological Department. So what is that? So IMD, the status is, it is an executive body. It is part of government department, Ministry of Earth Sciences. So it is an executive body, not statutory, not constitutional, but an executive body. All right. Then there was another question of related to China's science missions, and that you all want one compilation towards that and all the related news on that. So I have taken into that consideration, and on the day when we have less news, I'm going to do that, assuring you I will take it up. All right, so don't worry about that. Then there was another doubt which related to how can center decide the deputation of a person, since the decision against police and personnel lies in the hand of a state in the state list. Now see, officers of the IAS, IPS or IRS are appointed by the Union Public Service Commission. That is a central body, a constitutional body, but directly under the central government. All right. So these employees are appointed by the central government, but the place once they choose, so they serve different state governments based on the cadre that they are part of. Their transfers, all of it, when they are in state, they are done by the state government. All right. However, in case of deputation, based on the rules, service rules of 1954, they can be taken to central deputation, but that only comes with the convention, not a written rule, that all of this should always be done through the consent of the officer involved. All right. So in that regard, this is in itself, the situation in Bengal is unprecedented in this regard, that the officer involved was not consulted. However, there is no bar that the central government cannot ask these officers to be involved, all right, on central deputation. Then there was another question: can an Indian citizen hold dual citizenship? No. As per Part 2 of Indian Constitution, that is Article 5 to 11, Indians can only have citizenship of one country. You may be a long-term resident of somewhere else. You may also have the OCI card, all the other relaxations that you may have in different countries. You may be a visitor of that country, all of that. But Indian Constitution only permits single citizenship. That is, you are only the citizen of India. And the moment you take up citizenship of another state or another country, then you relinquish your Indian citizenship. You no more remain a citizen of India. For example, Mehul Choksi, he took up citizenship of Antigua. The moment he did that, he ceased being an Indian citizen. All right. There was, in the doubt, there was highlighted that Akshay Kumar is a Indian citizen. No, he is a Canadian citizen. He lives in India through a long-term visas, LTVs, which provide them with long-term visas of 20 years. All right. Then there was another question related to fundamental right to privacy. So this one I will answer during the editorial section. So on that note, let's dive into today's newspaper. So on the front page is the GDP figure. So finally the GDP figures have come in of the past financial year, that is 2020 to 2021. This is the year when the coronavirus first wave happened, when the national lockdown took place. And on that note, the Indian economy, as per government figures, has shrunk by 7.3%. This is the highest since in the recorded history of India. that never has the Indian economy contracted in such a way. We have contracted thrice previously, which is in 1979, then in 1963, 64, and then 71. 63, 64, and 71 were war years when India had wars with Pakistan, China. So those were exceptional years. But apart from that, in 1979, we also contracted. But this is the first time we have contracted to such a depth, and the after effects of it will be very severe in terms of recovery. All right. So this is better than the projection of the government. It had believed that we will contract by 8%, but marginally we are better by 7.3. So now the question that can be asked in CLAT examination is that what was the percentage of shrinkage of Indian GDP? That is 7.3%. Now you will not be asked Q1, Q2, you will only be asked the final figure if you are asked a question like that. Now, what does 7.3 mean? 7.3 means that based on previous year, we have shrunk by that much percentage, that we are now less than what we were a year before, and the overall comparison is based on base years. All right. So base year is on basis of which we say that there has been a percentage increase or a percentage decrease. All right. So this year we have shrunk by minus 7.3%, all right, which means that we were in a proper recession last year. Then on the right hand side, the Supreme Court bats for one price for vaccines across nation. So you all know that different vaccines are being priced at different levels. Sputnik 5 995, then Covaxin 600, 300, Covishield 300, 600, 1200, different prices for different. The Supreme Court has stated that this cannot go on. We have to have one price for the entire nation. This dual standard of pricing of vaccines is not acceptable. All right. So it needs to be seen what happens on this. Then it's time to define the limits of sedition. Why? Because two Telugu channels reported against mishandling of COVID crisis, and then the government of Andhra Pradesh put them under or file petition of or file case of sedition against them. Similarly, channels in Uttar Pradesh have also been filed similar cases against them for reporting of the coronavirus, of bodies floating in different areas. So the Supreme Court has now given that, see, this is not what the intention of sedition law was, that sedition cannot be used to muzzle the voice in India, that this is now being used muzzling the media, that is, you're trying to stop their voices. And secondly, that this is now impinging on the constitutional rights of information and different rights of different individuals, and the government is using the law indiscriminately without any bar, that it is using it against its critics, journalists, social media users, any and everyone who goes against the government in any manner whatsoever is termed as anti-India. Because sedition is not anti-government. It means the moment a case of sedition is filed against you, it means that you are anti-India or anti-national as the tag goes. So the Supreme Court already has accepted a petition, that C, which will determine the constitutional validity of this law, and now it is also indicated that it wants to define the limits of sedition beyond which the law cannot be used, because on lower level this is filed against them and then it is moved on. People have to file appeals in High Court, approach Supreme Court. By the time their rights are limited, they are put behind bars, and those are what the Supreme Court is concerned about. Then moving on the national news, some states are now opening up in different manners the unlock procedure as the test positivity rate declines in the country. At the same time, vaccine shortage, all of that is still there. Those are not particularly related to us from CLAT perspective. All right, then moving on to the editorial section. So the main editorial is elected autocrats and their pandemic responses. It is a comparison of Indian Prime Minister Brazilian president and US President Donald Trump. A stark contrast between Donald Trump and Joe Biden can be seen. While the handling of US has reported the highest number of deaths per million cases, now US under Joe Biden is already out of the pandemic. More or less has tided over the pandemic, has given 40% of its population is fully vaccinated, that they have got both the doses and not just one dose. So it shows that how consultation, scientific reliance in general, and in stark contrast to the rallies that Donald Trump organized, Joe Biden always used distanted rallies. He used to have car rallies on ground so that people maintain social distancing. And all of this editorial then discusses that how elected autocrats and their pandemic responses. Not it's a policy criticism of the three heads of the state. Then on the left hand side, ending encryption, enforcing traceability. So we have already discussed what this law is. A significant social media intermediary having users above 50 lakh need to have an officer appointed. However, there are two concerns that are highlighted. So the traceability argument we already know. WhatsApp has filed a case against it. The case that this editorial makes is that government under section 69(3) of the IT Act and rules 17 and 13 of the 2009 surveillance rules already has the ability which requires intermediaries to assist with decryption in cases where it has the technical ability to do so, and in place where there is a serious offense, all right, which is basically to guard and protect the other user, which is same to the argument applied in intermediary rules. So the first thing it states is that, see, all of this is already present. The second problem that it highlights is that, see, the person who will be in charge of removing content, or the person who will be in charge of doing the tracing, are not independent individuals. That is, they are either appointed by the companies or they are government appointees. They are not independent, or they are not judicial officers. That the moment you say judiciary, you have a direct trust over that individual. So the one who are going to look at the content, they themselves are not independent. They are dependent on salaries from the company or from the government. It is precisely why officers, judicial officers, RTI officers, election commission officers, petitions have been filed for them to be appointed independently, because these agencies or the post where they work, they are supposed to work in a bipartisan manner. The second part of it is that, see, the moment the government, even if it is saying it is for last resort, the excuse or the grounds on which it can do the tracing is once again protection of sovereignty and integrity of India, child sexual abuse punishable with imprisonment, offences punishable with imprisonment. Now all of this is exactly the reason under which sedition has been misused. It is supposed to be anti-India law, but it is used to protect against criticism of the government. It is seen, we have already seen criticism of the government being seen as a threat to their sovereignty and integrity. That if I criticize the government, it is going to amount to either trying to create vested agenda against the government. So it is a slippery slope argument. And secondly, the moment the individuals who are going to implement the law, they themselves are not independent, it is more or less likely that they are going to follow what the government asks them to do. And this is what the editorial is highlighting as a concern. And that in cases, so a lot of you had doubts that in terms when the government does trace our information, and in case it is wrong, what are the protections we are granted? First, there are no protections that are there. That the moment government wants to see your content, the social media company will have to comply with it. There is no limitation then, or no control of you, of how many conversations of yours are actually being de-encrypted, or what all details is the government going to take out. So see, there is a risk of another thing. What happens is, when a person is not independent, let's say the government through its non-independent officers takes up, de-encrypts a conversation, de-encrypts your entire conversations, different conversations. There is nothing that stops them from making copies of it, further sharing of it, because the moment all of this is shared in general to entire public, all of the purpose of privacy, which is supposed to be only in limited manner can be taken away, can all be thrown out of the window. And that is what the concern is regarding these rules. Then moving on, no comments. So this is in response to Naomi Osaka, world number 2 and the most popular female tennis player right now, to stating that she will not participate in media conferences. Already in our time period, the scope of press conference is limiting. Politicians don't indulge in press conferences anymore. It is very easy, even superstar, Bollywood stars or any public individual does not engage in press conferences. The limit, what is difference between a press conference and a social media interaction, or between giving an interview to one journalist instead of doing press conference? In press conferences, there are multiple journalists from multiple agencies can ask you multiple questions, which is in itself trying to get better information out. There is obviously a scope that where journalists can be vindictive, there can be vested interest, but the editorial then states that this is going to do something of reducing more and more scope of information gathering. It will reduce the scope of asking tough questions, because sometimes, let's say a tennis player actually actively engages in time wasting tactics, does something actively, let's say uses the net shots to avoid or gain points, or any other tactics. For example, this incident that Naomi Osaka talks about in 2018 US Open final, in that Serena Williams had alleged that the referee was biased against her, which led to Naomi Osaka, who won her first Grand Slam then, her victory was overshadowed by that incident. That, see, I did not win because of my caliber, but I won actually because the ref was biased against Serena Williams. So in that regard, all of this, let's say there is a similar incident where the player is actively using methods to abuse, or those kinds of incidents. So in press conferences, these kinds of questions can be put out to people, but in a closed atmosphere where for example, we already know multiple journalists who either have already notified questions to the athlete or to a politician. So all of this is going to shrink the space for public information gathering, that if there are uncomfortable questions that need to be answered. The Sandpaper Gate scandal of Australia, it became such a prominent thing of ball tampering in Australian cricket, led to ban of two most prominent cricketers because of press conferences highlighting that, see, we noted certain incidents like this. Did you actively do this? Similarly, in Zemamun Haq, different other sporting incidents have also come into picture through press conferences questions only. So all of this in sports post-match press conferences are a part of this. It highlights that, see, in India, there is already so limited engagement, and these can become now the main incident or the main norm under which engagement can take place. For example, one of our most recent legends of the cricket game, that is MS Dhoni, the former captain of the men's cricket team, retired through a post on Instagram. There are different incidents that he uses in the video but doesn't actually speak to the people. So there are people who may not want to speak, but then it then sets the example that information gathering through press is going to limit further and further. We already know that our Prime Minister has not held a press conference since he took power. When Prime Minister Manmohan Singh was in power, collective requests were made for him to have multiple press conferences. He used to do press conferences whenever he used to return from foreign visits, but it was still very limited. So all of this is going to reduce, and this is what the editorial highlights. Then power play to bring digital ecosystem to heel. So this is once again criticism of the new rules, and it points out one important thing, that consultation had taken place with the industry in 2018 when draft of similar rules was brought down to key stakeholders. The editorial points out that, see, even then social media companies, stakeholders, different independent think tanks had complained that, see, this is not to be done. The purpose of consultation should not mean that you take their comments and say we will not, or reject them altogether. The purpose is, if there are certain concerns of people, you don't go ahead with them, because people who are going to use the apps are not confident with them. So either you generate consensus towards it, or you put it on the back burner, which is the intent behind democratic stakeholdership. So this is that see, all of this is going to put digital ecosystem to the heel of the system or of the government, because through encryption then different cases can be filed against them. By the time judiciary decides that a case was wrong or not, the moment is gone. Let's say there is a criticism of a politician's policy. By the time the story, based on a story, his chats are traced, he is put behind bars through some or the other cases. By the time the judiciary decides, usually a case takes approximately 2.5 to 3 years. That politician may have caused that much damage in 2.5 years, and sometimes cases may take even longer. For example, in the case of Nambi Narayanan, it has almost taken 30 years for it to be known that, see, this was a vested campaign against the scientist and not actually was based on any sound evidence. By 30 years, even now, the police officers who did it, no complaints have been filed against them even now. So justice, by the time can be done, would lead to huge ramifications on the rights, and that editorial talks about that. Then moving on, the op-ed section on the right hand side is one that is important, the Indian model of coexistence. That, see, there is problem in Israel-Palestine. We have already done in-depth analysis about it, that Israel now occupies different parts that was supposed to be the erstwhile state of Palestine. Palestinian state, or the state of Palestine, is now unviable in the sense they are now living in islands of land, not interconnected, because in between is their Israeli settlement. So there are only one way that the state of Palestine can become a viable state, when Israel withdraws from the territories and evicts its Israeli settlers, which seems unlikely. So the only solution then for a peace in Israel is that they follow the system what is there in India, that we have a secular state where people live in coexistence. We have minorities, we have religious minorities, we have casteist minorities within religion also. So therefore this becomes important, that the only viable solution, see, Pakistan tried to do a similar system where it tried to impose one culture over another part of its own territory. That led to its division between Pakistan and Bangladesh. Stoking fear led to our partition of India with India and Pakistan. So only the model of coexistence and Indian secularism is being pointed out as a solution for long-term peace in the region. That even if they create states, the model can only work when there is coexistence of people. Then on the left hand side is recognizing caste-based violence against women. That this is a policy one in general. Then moving on, Coven and casinos and luck. This is that, see, the Coven platform is basically similar to gambling, where we seem to be in control, but we keep on using it until we believe that we may get successful eventually, because some people have got successful. This is related to Coven slot booking, because people keep trying every day that today I will get a slot, today I will get a slot, in hope that eventually my luck will strike. So that is what it is. Then the data point points out that in the past week, vaccination pace has picked up in certain areas of the country. Then on the other national news, the first one, Delhi High Court gave its judgment that Central Vista project no need to stay it for two reasons. One, it is an essential project that needs to be undertaken, and secondly that it is also the petition that was filed was selective in the sense that there were other construction works that were ongoing. However, none of this complaints were filed against them, but was only against the Central Vista project. So on that ground, the Delhi High Court stated that this PIL will not be accepted. Then moving on about the NHRC, that Justice Arun Mishra, former Supreme Court judge, is more likely to be the next head of NHRC. The National Human Rights Commission is a statutory body passed through the Protection of Civil Rights 1993 Act. It was created through a statute of the Parliament, so it is a statutory body. Alright, the committee that selects the panel, it includes the Prime Minister, the Home Minister, Deputy Chairman, that is Deputy Chairman of Rajya Sabha, then Lok Sabha Speaker, then Leader of Opposition in the Rajya Sabha. Alright, so that is what the panel includes that selects the head of the NHRC. In that regard, it is more likely that Justice Arun Mishra is going to head the NHRC. He had infamously, while being in the post of an acting judge of the Supreme Court, had made remarks towards Prime Minister Modi, which was seen out of the thing because it is seen that the judge is biased towards government, which is the largest litigator in the country. Then moving on the international news. So on the international news, there is one is regarding China. So China has now decided that it will allow people to have up to 3 children. Why has China done so? Because the birth rate in China, or the number of new babies in China, has reduced dramatically. It has fallen below the level that it had in 1961 when the country was facing famine on the backdrop of 4-year-long famine. So it is now being seen that if China does not produce enough babies, the country is already aging at a rapid pace, and the economic goals that China has for itself will not be able to suffice. In sight of large-scale population boom in China, the Communist Party had imposed a one-child policy. So for the past 3 generations of Chinese, they have only seen 1 children, and economic cost in China have also risen over time. So in 2016, the Communist Party realized that okay, the one-child policy had reached its aim. We have reached a certain level of economic stability. We can afford to have 2 children. So China is a controlled state where people, how many children they may want to, is actually decided by the state. So in 2016 they had a 2-child policy, and now they have moved towards a 3-child policy. Then moving on, there is reports come out that US had spied on German Chancellor Angela Merkel from 2012 to 2014. This was also the time when whistleblower Edward Snowden had come out that US was doing mass surveillance on its own citizens. This is all related to how the apparatus was set up in 2001 post the 9/11 attack, where any and everyone was seen as a suspect. In democratic societies, the citizens create the government and not the government gives the right to the citizens. The citizens have innate rights which the state cannot take away, and right to privacy is part of them. So this, how the governments react to this now, needs to be seen. Then moving on, there are further updates from Saudi Arabia and conversation in Iran that their talks for bilateral relationship are ongoing on a good atmosphere, and many obstacles remain in bid to oust Benjamin Netanyahu, says Yair Lapid, that a coalition is in trial, that they will be able to make a coalition against Benjamin Netanyahu, who has been the Prime Minister for past 12 years. As long as Benjamin Netanyahu remains in the post of Prime Minister, corruption cases against him cannot be pursued, which is also his major incentive to work towards or to remain in power as the Prime Minister. Then thousands of Rohingyas protest at Bhasan Char. Bhasan Char is the island off the coast of Bangladesh where Rohingya refugees from Myanmar have been relocated from the mainland of Bangladesh. Now, reports during the visit of the UNHRC took place, and we need to wait for further updates about this. Then this news, Democrats walk out Scupper's bill for Texas vote for overall. This is similar to what had taken place in Miami and different areas where the Republicans are in power, that post losing this year's election, they have been trying to make voting difficult for people. That as voting will become difficult for people, there are chances of them retaining power in the long term. That there are only two ways that you can win elections or get re-elected in democracy. Either you ensure that you do good work so people vote you back in power, or you ensure that people who will not vote for you are not even able to vote. So the Republican Party has been trying to do the second method since they lost the elections this year. Then on the economic page, vaccination is key to health of economy. That only when we are able to have more and more vaccines for the people, the economic impact, and we will be able to tide over the upcoming waves of COVID-19. Apart from this, on the sporting section, so Naomi Osaka, after the decision that she'll not face press conference, she has now decided that she will withdraw from the French Open altogether. In response that it is better for everyone that she takes steps away from this Grand Slam, because all the 4 Grand Slam organizing committees have stated that this is part of every athlete's obligation. If they are not willing, they will take action towards expulsion of her. In response to that, she has decided she will on her own withdraw from French Open. So we can get a question about which was the tennis player who withdrew from the Grand Slam on account of threat of ban from Grand Slams in future. So Naomi Osaka, she is born to a Hawaiian father and Japanese mother and has been raised in US but is a Japanese citizen and represents Japan in tennis Grand Slams. On that note, this is the news from today's newspaper. On that note, we'll conclude in today's newspaper. The most important news is regarding Naomi Osaka, then Chinese policy of 3-child, and then on national news about the intermediary rules, then economic contraction figures. That becomes very, very important in terms, because economy related one passage is definitely going to come in CLAT 2021. So on that note, I'll conclude and I will see you all tomorrow.